Dan and I met at university. I was studying psychology, and he was preparing to be a doctor. We had friends in common, and we became boyfriends quite quickly. Unfortunately, I also got pregnant too quickly, and I had to give up on my career dreams while he continued his studies. Although I know that it was the best thing for our daughter, Camille, it has never seemed fair to me that only I had to give up my professional dreams, when clearly it was done between the two of us. Anyway, Dan's family is better positioned financially than mine, and from the beginning, they offered to support us with everything. In fact, we live in an annex to his parents' house. My relationship with them is good, I would say much better with Richard, his father, than with Christine, his mother, because she defends Dan too much. She even says that he is the apple of her eye, and he is already quite grown up. On more than one occasion, she and I have argued because she always takes his side, and I consider that he does not support me enough at home. To be more specific, he is almost never there. When he is not at the university studying, he is at the hospital doing internships and his specialty. Meanwhile, I spend every day taking care of the girl. Richard, on the other hand, is usually very kind to me all the time and supports me in family discussions. He constantly reminds Dan that he must take care of me since I am his wife, and that a good father must not only provide what is necessary but also be present. If I'm honest, at times I have wished that my husband was more like Richard, my father-in-law, and less like himself. My father-in-law is an attentive, polite, and very helpful man. Every time we meet, he makes sure I feel comfortable. He opens the car door for me, pulls out the chair for me when we sit down to eat, and always tries to have a bottle of red wine because he knows I love it. You will agree with me that this man is quite charming. But it doesn't end there. He is also extremely flirtatious, and I find him very attractive. I know that at this point in the story, you may think that I'm crazy or that I am disrespectful for seeing my own father-in-law that way, being a married woman. But I do not expect you to understand me. I simply want to let you know that I have found in him a support and an escape that I got tired of asking my husband for and never got. It was never in my plans to get involved with my husband's father, but things just happened, and by the time I realized the seriousness of the matter, I was enjoying it too much to stop. I have roughly put you in context, but now I'm going to tell you how I ended up with my father-in-law. Dan's family has a house on the beach, and we had been planning to spend the holidays there for a long time. My husband finally got a week off in the summer, and we left as soon as we could to make the most of it. The plan was to meet again as a couple and unite as a family, my husband, my daughter, and I. But it turned out to be quite the opposite. When we got to the house, we found it quite dirty, and the first thing we did was start cleaning. Of course, as soon as everything was in order and Camille decided to take a nap, we got romantic and ended up on the couch. Those kind of moments between us were always good. I think we are both quite intense, and that is the reason why Camille came into our lives early. We did it so often, in the back seat of his car, at parties, get-togethers, and pretty much every time we had a chance to be alone. So, I'd be lying to you if I said I knew when we screwed up. Believe it or not, the arrival of our daughter changed both of our lives completely. Although we are still the same, and we are together, we no longer have as many opportunities for privacy, so we take advantage of every little moment. But I confess that for me, it is not enough. At the vacation house, I pushed him to the couch, and he was surprised by my outburst. I immediately let him know what I wanted, and he responded immediately. He knew very well how to cheer me up. About me, we tried to be discreet, but the desire was too great to contain. I was really enjoying it and couldn't help but snort. Camille must have heard it because right at that moment, she woke up crying. Wait, let's finish. She just woke up suddenly, but she's going to calm down, I begged him. I'm sorry, I can't concentrate on this like this, love, he told me. I was absolutely frustrated. I got dressed and went to console Camille, but that interruption was just an allegory of my life. When I was about to graduate, she also interrupted me, and Dan only thinks about himself. I was angry with Dan for the rest of the day. We went for a walk, and Camille got to know the beach. She got her feet wet in the sea for the first time, and I was really happy to see that she enjoyed it. I want to clarify that I do not blame my daughter for anything. On the other hand, I think that Dan did not know how to make me happy, and although that does not justify what happened next, I only hope that whoever listens to my story is able to put themselves in my place as a woman. We returned to the house. We opened the door and the heat from inside hit us in the face like a wave. The air conditioner had broken, and Dan had no idea how to fix it. But it was impossible to sleep in it without suffocating, so he called his father to help us. Richard didn't take more than a couple of hours to arrive. He greeted Camille and me with kisses and immediately began to check what had happened to the air. Dan was helping him, but at that moment, his phone rang. "I thought you wouldn't bring him to our vacation," I told him. "I'm a doctor. I can't just disappear," he answered me, and I rolled my eyes at him. Dan left to answer the call, and I took his place in case Richard needed anything. Then I could notice his gaze on me. I don't blame him. "I think he hasn't learned the value of things yet," Richard told me. "I just don't understand it. He simply cares more about his career than he does about me," I told him with moist eyes, but not with sadness, but with rage. As soon as I finished saying that, Dan appeared back. "Listen, there is an emergency at the hospital, and they need me to go. You will have to excuse me," he said. "Really? Are you the only doctor who can go?" I told him, very angry. "I'm the only one who knows how to handle the equipment needed to save that person. Sorry, I'm leaving now, but I promise to make it up to you. I'll be back as soon as I can. Dad will be here if you need anything," he answered me, gave me a kiss, kissed Camille on the forehead, and thanked his father before getting in the car and leaving. "I cannot believe it," I said as I watched him walk away. After a long pause, Richard finally said something. "Don't you know what I brought?" he said as he repaired the air, gesturing with his head for me to check his luggage. I approached the trunk of the car and saw a box with 3 bottles of red wine. "You are amazing," I told him, and kissed him on the cheek. He stood stiff for a moment, but then he smiled, and I got nervous. I didn't know why I had done that. I just felt the need to show affection to this man who cared about me more than my husband. "I think my son doesn't know what he has," Richard said. "Oh yeah? Why do you say so?" I inquired. "You are a beautiful woman, Astrid. He's lucky you're with him because it's clear he doesn't treat you the way you deserve. I can see that you are not happy, although apparently you lack nothing. I think that perhaps as a woman, you lack everything," he said, and I was speechless, but I couldn't help but think that Christine was very lucky. As soon as Richard finished repairing the air, we turned it on and closed the house to cool it down. Meanwhile, we went to eat ice cream, and half an hour later, we were back. I bathed Camille, and she immediately fell asleep from exhaustion. I knew she wouldn't be a bother that night. Then Richard and I sat on the terrace to talk and drink wine. That was a perfect moment. The weather was warm, but the breeze refreshed the atmosphere and shook the palm trees, which sounded like a lullaby in my ears. Although I really like wine, I can't stand drinking a lot. In my second glass, I was already starting to say things I shouldn't have. "Listen, Richard, I can call you by your name, right? At the end of the day, we have confidence," I said. "Go ahead. I've always told you not to treat me like a gentleman. It makes me feel old, and I'm not," he answered. "What are you saying?" "I think you are in your best moment. You even stay in shape. You are strong and very attractive. There is something about you that I find extremely charming," I said. "Really? And what will it be?" he asked. "That's the problem. I don't know what it is, but I like it when you're close to me, the way you treat me, the way you talk to me, and take care of me. It makes me feel," I said, but then I paused, trying to clear my thoughts that were already visibly affected by alcohol. "Do you want what you can say?" He insisted, and I, who at that moment did not dare to say it, approached him as if dominated by a force greater than myself, and kissed him. I could feel that he had been impressed right away, and I even noticed a small impulse to separate from me, but immediately afterwards, he reciprocated, and then I knew that not only I felt that strange attraction, he felt it too. My suspicions were confirmed, so I fell into his arms, and he held me tightly. Then he carried me to the bed and laid me down, but when he was about to leave me, I grabbed his neck and pulled him back to me. "Please stay," I asked him. He looked me in the eyes for a moment, and then immediately pounced on me. From the uncontrolled way in which we did it, I knew that he had been fighting against that impulse for a long time, and I, who at that moment felt extremely dissatisfied, needed him more than wanting him. I took the initiative. I had never done it before with a man older than me, so I was surprised he was so manly and dominant that I wanted to become his doll that night, and I let him do whatever he wanted. "Can you grant me unlimited access?" he asked. "Anyone you want," I replied. I soon discovered why he was asking that question. "I don't know if you've tried it before, but I guarantee you'll enjoy it." In a single intense night with my father-in-law, I released all the tension I had accumulated, and that my husband had not been able to satisfy. But after the storm, there always comes calm. The next morning, we found ourselves extremely quiet, each one absorbed in our own thoughts. I knew exactly what he was thinking because it was the same thing that had been running through my head since I woke up. Although I had my reasons, those that I've been telling you throughout this entire story, I couldn't help but feel bad for having betrayed Dan. While it is true that he has not been able to keep me happy in certain aspects, I cannot deny that he is a good man and an excellent father. Despite all that, he didn't deserve to be cheated on, much less with the person I did. If that's how I felt being his wife, I couldn't imagine what Richard was feeling as his father. I didn't even want to think about what would happen to that family if one day Dan found out. Camille began to cry at that moment, taking us out of our thoughts, and in that abrupt way, we returned to reality. We then realized that we had to take charge of the situation and handle it like adults. As the day went by, we talked to calm our guilt and the anxiety that that situation had generated in us. However, just as we agreed that what we did was unforgivable, we also agreed that it had been one of the best nights for both of us in a long, long time. Under the circumstances, we agreed to keep everything a secret and continue our lives as if none of that had happened. Dan returned to the beach house, and we ended up spending the vacation together like a seemingly normal and happy family. Back at home, and in the routine, I began to feel more miserable as time went by because now I tasted the nectar of happiness and I was not willing to continue settling for crumbs, knowing that I could enjoy something much better. Approximately a month later, and after much thought, I met alone with Richard and told him that I was leaving Dan. I had decided I was willing to make up for the time I had lost in that marriage that did not make me happy. I knew it would be difficult, but I was willing to try. Then something happened that I didn't expect. Richard insisted until he convinced me to stay in the marriage with the condition that we repeat our meetings once a month without fail. I had not even considered that possibility, but I was willing to accept it in order to have a full life as a woman again. Although I knew the risk we were taking, at that moment I thought that maybe it would be for the best. Dan is a man who has been raised in a very traditional way. He could never recover from a divorce. And after all, Richard seemed to be as incomplete as I was. So agreeing to his proposal was the best thing for everyone, or at least that was what I told myself to alleviate the guilt and feel a little less of a bad person. Despite that, I will tell you that since then, I am a much more complete and happier woman. My relationship with my husband has improved, and although in bed everything remains the same, I have an escape route that is always there to comfort me. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and if you're curious to see where this journey takes us next, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss a single update. Your support is what keeps this channel alive and kicking, and every like, comment, and share means the world to us. We've got plenty more stories, insights, and surprises coming your way, so stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.